revenue limit, and I'll tell you about yours in a minute. All districts have a base revenue limit, and they're not all the same. A lot of them are higher than yours, some are lower. But attendance, or average daily attendance, drives that funding. And so I just ran a report. Now, all these reports are off the same database. CTA has a database. I know CSCA has a database. I don't know if Local 1 does, but you probably do. And the good news about all these numbers, if I'm dealing with my counterpart, one of the associations or the unions, we usually don't argue about numbers because the numbers are the numbers. We argue about priorities and is the number big enough or is it too small? But we usually don't argue about the numbers. And this is from a statewide database. And the state is really slow. So it's 10-11, and I know you close 11-12. If this was a month later, I think I could give you 11-12. And I know some of your staff are aware of where to get these numbers and can update these. But this shows enrollment, or excuse me, ADA patterns. And so you have districts like, obviously out in the suburbs, Liberty, San Ramon. These are growing districts. Okay, they're getting more kids. And these are declining districts, meaning you're losing kids, okay? And so in addition to the budget and how much the cost of living adjustment was going to be, that sort of thing, this really has a big impact on budgets. And so in general, I'll just say it in general, financially, it's good to grow. And I think of growth and decline this way. Why is it financially better to grow? Well, in Mount Diablo, you're a big giant district. You're a big district. If you get one more kid, state gives you about $5,000. About. That's not the right number, but about. They give you $5,000. All right? How much does it cost to serve that kid? You going to add a teacher for one kid? No. You going to add a groundsman? Are you going to add a principal for the one kid? No. But you get $5,000. On the natural, in most districts, it doesn't cost you very much to serve one more kid. You probably have to buy them a textbook, some other things. Very low cost to serve that additional kid. Now, you could argue if I get a bunch of them, I might have to add a teacher. But when you add up the revenue typically you get for new kids, you don't add the expenses as fast. But if you're declining enrollment, it's the opposite. So if you lose a kid, lose $5,000. I don't have to buy a textbook, but you're going to lay off a teacher? Are you going to, get rid of a principal to accommodate that declining enrollment? Typically, you're not. And so, districts that grow, so you have some neighbors growing. San Ramon Valley's been growing through this economic crisis, and they've had some financial flexibility you haven't had, because they're adding those kids, adding that $5,000 per kid. But they're not adding the expenses as fast, and so they're able to do, and I haven't looked at their budget, but I know they have more financial flexibility. It's through that growth, okay? And so, and these are, I didn't create these numbers. These are from the CDE, and again, most of the associations share that database. Yes?
What is number 6?
Number 6 is the, thank you, the comparative group. This is the average of all these districts in here, okay? So on average, Contra Costa County is growing, okay? So it's a comparative average. Thank you.
Question.
Yes.
Why was the year 2006-07 chosen as the start year? What is it?
Because this is a canned report from the CDE, and that's the period they chose.
Okay, thank you.
So nothing
It
mystical.
wasn't tied to a specific historical point?
Yeah, good question. If I gave you 11-12, that would move a year too.
Okay.
It's the span they've chosen.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, but data's available all the way back. So it's a canned report. And this is just kind of an example of what I talked about between growth and decline. But in general, as you grow, you have more flexibility. As you decline, you have less financial flexibility. During the economic boom, a lot of these districts around here were declining because people could all of a sudden qualify for big giant houses in Elk Grove and Tracy, and you had this mass exodus from the Bay Area, and it was all going to Elk Grove, Tracy, that sort of thing, because you could buy a 3,000 square foot house for $180,000, right? And lot of people were qualifying those. So we had all these districts in the Central Valley growing tremendously, okay, at your expense. We weren't getting that many new kids into California. They were shifting back and forth between districts. Now what we're seeing now is that they're shifting back. So Palo Alto hasn't grown in like 20 years. They're actually growing now. And it's kids moving back in their parents' house, and it's the grandkids going to school. It's because of this tough economy. So a lot of things can affect your growth or decline. And here's one warning right here. If you've been declining a long time, you want to stop eventually, and you'd like to grow. But what happens in the state, this state, the one nice thing the state does for you, if you decline, you get to claim the higher of prior year or current year ADA, so you get a 1-year break on declining enrollment. So assume this line right here is your ADA, and you start to decline. In year 1, you're flat, then you start to decline. Well, in year 2, you're declining, but you get funded at the prior year, okay? Okay? But as you decline, you're always funded on the prior year, so there's a lag in the cut in funding. But what happens when you bottom out, and you want to bottom out and start growing, you're going to start growing again, and when you get more kids, eventually you'll have to add staff, you'll have to add expenses. You're going to have to add expenses back, and you don't get any new money until you get back to where you were on the prior year. So when you bottom out, you start growing, and you have to accommodate those kids. It's not a big dollar amount. I talked about, growth. It's usually more economical. A lot of districts have real problems here when they make the turn. And I don't know when you're going to bottom out, or if you've bottomed out. So you might have seen this chart before. So I'd like to talk. This is the environment we're in now. Okay. Every district in the state has a base revenue limit, and this is yours. Okay. And in 07-08, that's when the economic meltdown occurred. So in 07-08, you per kid on your revenue limit. Let me talk what revenue limit is. Revenue limit's the unrestricted money per kid you get that you have local control over. You as a board have complete freedom on how you spend the money. You can't buy guns or alcohol or anything, but you can pretty much do what you want with that money. That's local control money. And what do you pay for out of this? Almost all your teachers, almost all your principals, a lot of your classified staff. This is your solvency money right here. So in 07-08 was the last year the state of California met its obligation to you. When I say that, they're required to provide a certain dollar amount to you, and in 07-08 they did. It was $5,780, and by the way, that's 45th in the nation or whatever, compared to other states. And what happens in California, you've probably heard the term COLA, cost of living adjustment. Well, we haven't had them for a long time, so you've probably never experienced a COLA, but they could be coming your way. When a cost of living adjustment, it's not a political number, it's a calculation. Let me tell you what that means. Cost of living adjustment is a calculation. It's the implicit price deflator for government services, blah, blah, blah. There's a whole giant definition of it. And basically what it is, it's an economic calculation that the Department of Finance and the Bureau of Labor Statistics does that calculates the cost of a government organization keeping its doors open the following year. Let me say that differently. This district, every year costs are going to go up because health benefits go up, step and column, gas, electricity. Think of your household budget. Every year, the dollar million is now $1.10 or whatever. And so this is a calculation. But what the state of California has been doing is saying, I can't afford to give you that. So let me explain these numbers. So in 08-09, the implicit price deflator said for Mount Diablo not to add new programs, but to maintain what it's done the prior year, should have gotten $6,109. Now, one of the components in here is CPI, the Consumer Price Index. And part of that's making sure our employees have the same standard of living they did the prior year.